Well, good evening, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls around the world. It is once again time for the WADcast. That's the Writers, Actors, Directors Podcast, episode number 83, I think. I'm Josh, joined with me, as always, by Mr. California Body himself.
Yeah, what's up, everybody? Happy Friday. Hope everyone's had a great week, productive week. So Josh, good to see you again, buddy.
Good to be seen. Surviving another 7 days.
Oh, God. Okay. Sorry, I'll let you do the whole introduction, Josh. I'm just trying to, sorry.
No, take your time. Take your time. It's not like we're live or anything.
Listen, it's with our show, if we're not screwing up something, either beginning, during, or after the show, then we're doing something, right, which is not what we do here. So, all right, sorry, ready, got it. Sorry.
All right, enough about you, because tonight, sir, we have a very special guest. It is none other than Matt McCarthy, stand-up comic, as well as podcaster, actor. I'm not sure if there's anything this guy doesn't do. How are you doing, Matt?
I'm good. Thanks for having me.
Good to have you on the show. We'd like to pick your brain about, where you've been, what you've been up to, and, where you see yourself going.
Straight down the tubes.
So you're going to be joining us.
Yeah, there we go.
Right.
We're all sinking together.
I just want to, note that we have the Red Beard Club going on here, and Brandon's kind of the odd man out for once.
That's nice. It's okay. I'm used to it. I mean, I've been used to it ever since my parents gave me the name Brandon D. Junk, so I'm used to being the odd man out.
Yeah, you sexy bastard. You don't know anything.
Yeah, okay. So, Matt, it's great to have you on the show, man. It really is. As I was, saying earlier, I've actually, I saw you years ago in New York City. I think am I correct? I think it was like New York City in 2008 or 9. I used to live in Jersey, and me and an ex went up there for I forget what the occasion was, but there was a College Humor thing that she got tickets to, and I saw you, and it was hysterical. It was like oh God, it was like so long ago. But and you do a lot of things. Like you've actually been acting, doing stand-up for a while. You've been a lot of things with College Humor, a lot of skits. A lot of my friends they've introduced me to the Batman skits.
Right.
We've been playing Commissioner Gordon and all that. Yeah. But one of my favorite, I think, honestly, is going back to the military catfish.
Yeah.
So I mean, how did you get your starts? When did you? You're from Rhode Island, but
right.
How did you get into doing what you do now?
From doing stand-up, I mean, I guess the very beginning was doing open mics, and then just from just inserting myself into the stand-up scene in New York in the early 2000s, and then it was one of those things where at the time I was like, I don't understand how to do this, and then the answer from older comedians was always, you just keep showing up, and eventually you make friends with people. And I remember Ted Alexandro specifically explaining to me in terms I didn't understand, and he's like, the people you're doing comedy with now, those are the people that you're gonna come up with. And I was like, okay. But he was right. It's like I can look back now and see all these. It's a funny thing seeing people get crazy famous when you just knew them as he's kind of funny, type of thing. And so when I was gaining some steam, College Humor was getting off the ground. I mean, it's funny. I was just thinking about this the other day about now we have an entire production studio on our own. Back was it was a novel thing that somebody had a camera and lights and a computer and knew how to use them all and cut it together and actually make something. So
yeah.
like, yeah, so like things like College Humor and like Super Deluxe came and went, and this was all before Funny or Die showed up. It's interesting too how many people used to think all the College Humor videos I did were on Funny or Die, and now nobody thinks that. People who actually remembered them and enjoyed them knew that they were College Humor. It's a funny thing. But yeah, it all kind of started there and just fell into doing, other better stand-up shows, getting better comedy, and then doing like commercials and stuff, and just everything leads to something else, it seems.
Oh yeah. Oh, no, I mean it's funny you mention that because I think Josh, you and I were having a conversation a few weeks back about how I remember having a flip phone.
Mm-hmm.
And first off, I miss flip phones. I really do. I do miss having just like the texting. I had to push all the numbers and everything else. Oh, see, there you go. You got.
I miss
but that was fancy.
That's like a flip smartphone.
Yeah,
that doesn't count.
Yeah.
Like
you're talking about like you have to keep pressing the number to get to the letter you want.
Yeah, like 1 3 3 3 3 3 5 5 5 5 5.
Yeah.
4 4 4. Hello. but no, it's like I remember like how badass it was that a friend of mine in 2004, he had this camera on his phone. I'm like, oh my god, that's so awesome. And then it's like I remember going up to college, like everyone had like when I went to film school, everyone had cameras on their phones. But you say the whole, as you put it, the studio on your smartphone now, like it's all like everything that we ever needed to do anything film related is on the phone with apps and everything. Yeah. I had to spend overnights in like an editing lab and digitizing footage, so I could put it through a process and edit it. And I was there like all weekend. But you can do that now in an afternoon.
Yeah, I was looking at the in the film section. This is at Iliad Bookshop, and they have a great, obviously it's a used bookstore in Hollywood, so it's got like a great.
It's got a great selection though.
Great selection, and that whole corner with like movie books and production books and everything you can imagine, the history of cinema. And I was looking at the production books, and it was wild to me how like anything's going to be dated. It's a used bookstore, but like. These books were from the Stone Age now because it's just, it's completely irrelevant. Even the ones about like, how to break into things and how to get seen and like and it's just like, this stuff is kindling now. There was one book I looked at, and the last chapter was titled Internet. And it was just like 4 or 5 pages. And I was like, holy God, it's just everything's different. It's crazy.
Yeah, internet in the 90s. How to use. Don't answer the phone if you're on the internet.
And then even what its concept of like getting your stuff seen on the internet was, it was just talking about like eventually cable companies are going to be able to do on demand where you can just press the button and it'll play right then and there because of internet.
Yep.
I mean, it's wild, man. It's wild. But yet the whole beginning paragraph was like, it's describing YouTube, and it doesn't know that that's what's coming in like
a few short years.
Yeah, a few short years. It reminded me of that speech Jim Carrey gives at the end of Cable Guy. Because at the time, it's like, oh, this guy's crazy. And now we're well past the point where it's like, oh my God, he was right. Now we're at the point where it's just like, yeah, what's the big deal about? Yeah, it's quaint. Yeah, playing video games with somebody in Vietnam. It's crazy.
Oh yeah, no, it's gone a long way. So, but it's like from college humor, stand up to college humor. You've also done work on. You've actually been in a movie. You've been in The Other Guys, if I remember right. Correct?
Yeah, that was the first movie I was ever in. And what's weird is we shot that scene I'm in. We're in like a group therapy scene. In the same building where we shot. First of all, the first College Humor sketch I ever did, called "The Other Team," so that's weird in itself. And then I was back there for the other guys, but then all of the Jeggings College Humor sketches were shot in that same building. It was an old Catholic school that had been decommissioned by the diocese and was being used. I think that building's actually been torn down since, but it was just being used for, locations. So that was great. And on top of it all, at the time, I lived 2 blocks away. So I used to just throw on my sneakers and walk down there. I remember with the other guys, I was supposed to wear, my character was supposed to have a suit. And I got up early in the morning and I start getting dressed and I start putting on the suit, and my wife kind of peeked her eye and looks, and she goes, "No, honey, don't wear your wardrobe there. Bring it in a bag." And I was like, "Oh, I have no idea."
Bring it in a bag.
And I walked down with it over my shoulder and stuff. It was just, it was crazy. That was a wild day. I was just there for the one day, and the scene that made it. We did 2 scenes. One made it into the movie, and one got cut. The one scene I'm in with Bobby Cannavale and Mark Wahlberg. And what's crazy is I didn't know who Bobby Cannavale was at the time, and was sitting there watching him, and I was just like, "Wow, this guy's really good. I hope like things work out for him." He'd probably already been on Broadway by that point. I'm just like, "Wow, this guy's really funny. He really gets it."
Please tell me you wished him well before you left.
I might have. I honestly don't know.
It's like, "Hey, Bob, you have a bright future ahead of me, and just keep at it."
I must have said something like, "Wow, you're really good. Stick with it." That's my favorite thing to say to comedians when they get off stage. I was like, "Stick with it." Yeah.
Oh my God.
But the second scene, Will Ferrell was in, and so I actually got to meet him and hang out with him for most of the day. It was great. Yeah.
See, Josh, this means now you have to get yourself into some kind of Hollywood production.
Right.
Because now you have 2 esteemed actors here that were on a Hollywood production. Except he was actually cast, and I just kind of wandered on the set when I was in college and stoned. So now it's your turn.
That's how Dustin Hoffman got started.
Mine was Tenacious D and the Pick of Destiny in Venice Beach. So
and you wandered into a shot?
I had no idea what the hell was going on. No clue. I didn't even know there was a film. I just walked right through set, and I walked right down to the Santa Monica Pier. The movie comes out I guess a year later in 2006. No, 2006, 2007. A friend of mine shows me. I worked at the Bridge movie theater in Culver City, which is now I guess the Cinemark. Big 2-story theater. This girl Jasmine that I worked with comes and grabs me because she recognizes the back of a shirt. This ugly, nasty looking shirt. My favorite shirt. She recognizes it. So she pulls me in to the next showing of Tenacious D because it's at the very beginning. And there's me just walking right through, just doing my thing. I'm like, "Oh yay, I'm a movie star."
It's too perfect.
So, but no, it's that's awesome. That really is. So so where did it go from there with you? Do you still do stand up, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's maybe it's this way with everybody. I don't know. I hope it is. But my perception of the entertainment industry was you get a big break and then you're set, not you're rich set, but just you're just working consistently. And that I have found is not the case. And most people I know who are in the entertainment industry, actors and writers too as well. I mean, I've got good friends who were have run shows, not just been writers on shows, but have run shows, and then they're like, "I don't know what I'm going to do this week." It's a funny thing. I think there is I certainly had a misconception of everybody on TV is like rich and has consistent work, whereas I got to find out very quickly, like, of just what it's like to be just a working class actor jumping from. I heard somebody, I think it was Rob Riggle, described it once as like jumping from lily pad to lily pad, just like trying to find the next thing. So that's why it's, I don't know, like, because now I'm going to be on How We Roll, which starts on CBS next week, and even that has been just very, it sounds like, okay, well, now I've made it, right? But it still is one of those things where I'm like, God, I hope that check comes in for that Meineke commercial, because otherwise we're gonna have to dip into the savings this month, and type of thing. And it's very, I don't know. I have found the only solution is to just stay present. So after the other guys, it was back to jumping around to doing a lot of commercials. Commercials are the best. I love doing commercials because it's, the money's good, but it's also like, I like the performing aspect of it because you're there all day, which can be, exhausting, but you get a lot of opportunities to do the spot over and over again, and do it differently each time. Now, I'm not saying like, oh, I need 20 takes of this because I can't figure out how to do this. It's like I love improvising and doing it different each time. And like with the sitcom, it's a little, everybody just knows what they're doing, and it's a little more, at least this particular show is a little more relaxed, and everybody's cool, and it's like, okay, here's what we're doing, here's the amount of time we have to do it, and then we're going to move on. Whereas a commercial, it's like you're there, they're like, we have them for 8 hours, so we have to use them for 8 hours. And between like the ad people and the clients and the production people and then the other actors, there's always, well, what if we did this? Well, what if we did this? I mean, sometimes it can be maddening the way that the ad people, or particularly the client, whoever, whatever the product is, they're always like, he was frowning when he said the name of the product. He needs to be smiling. I did a commercial with actually, it was her first job, Emily Tarver, who was then on, I think, Orange is the New Black. She's incredible, so funny, such a good performer, and we're like a husband and wife. And I mean, I've seen people like get like notes in an audition and then feel like, oh man, they're not going to use this person. But that was the closest I'd ever seen somebody get like replaced on the day while we're shooting the commercial. Like they were just fixated on her. Like they're like, you're being mean to him. And I'm like, she's not being mean to me. My character's an idiot. And so she's reacting like a normal person would. But it's just this thing of like, no one in a commercial can be mean. Everyone has to be happy. Everyone has to be enjoying the product. And so like I at one point, the director pulled her aside and like, you just have to, even though it makes no sense, you just have to be smiling this whole time because they are about to replace you with, like, we were shooting like 3 different spots with 3 different couples during the day. And they're like, they're going to replace you with one of these other girls. And it was just like that close. It was crazy because it's like, she's so good, so it's there's always something to do. So I've been doing a lot of commercials, a lot of just TV spots, College Humor wound up winding down, and then Conan, a lot of sketches on Conan, which then in itself wound down. But yeah, like I got to be, God, I was just talking about this with my manager the other day. She was like, how many times were you on Conan? And I was like, I have no idea. Like at least over 30 of just like, typical like guy in the audience, like, yeah, Conan,
Yeah.
you that I love that. It's just like, that's just the best. I wish he would still be doing that show. It's just like there's nothing left in late night like that show was.
Oh yeah, no.
Yeah.
Conan's amazing. Like he's hysterical.
Yeah.
So, Josh.
Well, thanks for having me, guys.
I know.
All right. So we've talked a little bit about stand-up, a little bit about acting. What about writing? Can you tell us a little bit about what you write, especially when it comes to writing stand-up, or other writing gigs that you've done over the years?
Yeah, I mean, geez. I mean, obviously, yeah, I write my own stand-up. That's always fun. I mean, it's one of those things where I like, you gotta have an act, you gotta have jokes when you go up, but I also, like I'm saying, like I always like being in the moment and just interacting with the audience and having
just feel like you're hanging out with them, basically. Just
like it's supposed to be. I remember somebody saying to me, like in my first year of stand-up, they're like, it needs to be it needs to be a dialogue, not a monologue with them. And that really made sense to me, because I never wanted to just be standing there reciting my act, because the times that I have done that, it's death. So I don't typically press myself on what I'm going to talk about on stage, and the act. I remember reading like Bill Hicks talking about finding what the jokes were by performing, and so that always made sense to me once I started doing stand-up, because I would write things out, go up on stage and say it the way I wrote it, and I was like, this isn't working. And then just through doing it, I found I didn't make the effort to do what I read that he said about his approach. I just found that's just the way I had to do it, because I couldn't. There are guys, like, especially like one-liner comics, who are just like, they're almost like mathematicians, the way it's just like exact. And I just can't do that. I need to feel like I'm just hanging out and fucking around with my friends. Can I swear?
Brandon,
Yes.
would you like to explain the Brandon rule?
I was told, all right, this is how I've been explained this. I have the mouth of a sailor who retired and became an ice trucker.
Okay.
Our
like
first
Iceman
couple,
King Parsons.
It's really bad. I'm allowed one F-bomb, but because this is a Josh rule, I'm only allowed one per episode. Because it used to just be like F, 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 like just constant, like just.
It's true.
Yeah.
It was terrible.
It was just way too much, and it's just like But I will do this as a gift for you, Matt. I will give you my F-bomb. It's going to be so hard to go without cursing, but I caught myself. I almost said F it. But I'll give the F word to you.
I love it. Good. This isn't going to turn into an episode of Deadwood.
Oh God. No, but yeah, you can swear on the show. One F-bomb, the rest of it, have fun. Frankly, Josh, I think the F rule is bullshit. But,
that's acceptable though.
Why are Daddy and Daddy fighting?
Because we haven't had intimate time in a very long time.
We don't cuddle anymore. But go ahead. It's all you.
Yeah, I mean, getting up writing. I've written on small shows here and there. Pete Holmes show. Excuse me, Pete Holmes show. We had a talk show that was on after Conan for a little less than a year. That was wild. A daily show, nightly, I should say. Wrote for WWE. That was the craziest. That's nobody can. I can match. I can go. Like the scene in Jaws where they're showing their scars. I can go. Story for story with anybody who worked for the. I don't care how crazy of a narcissist you worked for. I'll put this up against any SNL story, any sitcom, any HBO anything. I like you cannot top writing for Vincent Kennedy McMahon and dealing with professional wrestlers. Um, it's just I always compare it to if SNL was live every week, a couple of times a week, never had a rerun, never had an off season, and they were in a different city every week, and Lorne Michaels was on steroids and would tear up the script as the show is starting and saying, "Who wrote this? A fourth grader?"
Has that happened to you?
Absolutely. When I was there, there were times the show was starting. We were in seg 1 and the head writer is still incorporating all the Vince notes into the show that is happening, that's airing right then and there on USA Network.
Oh my God.
Yeah. Oh God. It's that place, dude. I did I was on a pilot once for, I don't know what it was called, if it was called the N or the Nick Teen. It was some Nickelodeon, for adolescents.
Mhm.
And the showrunner, maybe it wasn't one of the producers was Hugh Fink, and he wrote at SNL the first time Dwayne Johnson hosted, and all he was fascinated that I wrote at WWE, and he just kept asking me questions about Vince and what it was like and all this stuff, because he's like, Matt, you don't understand. When we had the Lorne meeting, when The Rock hosted, Vince McMahon came in and took over the meeting, and he was like sitting on, like he was like leaning on Lorne's desk. The writers were all like, we don't know what's happening. What do we do? They were like, no one had ever out alphaed Lorne before, and suddenly Lorne's just sitting back like doing nothing, and then Vince is like, let me explain comedy to you guys. Oh God, that's the last thing we should do. Oh. And if you watch that episode, it's not The Rock, it's not one of the cast members, it's not one of the wrestlers who did cameos. It's Vince McMahon who says, live from New York, it's Saturday night. And it's just, I can picture it in my mind. They're like working all week, and he's like, goddamn, pal, I should probably say it, I don't think the rest of these guys know exactly how to deliver a line like that, It's the greatest.
That's great.
It was the worst, but it was the greatest. Yeah.
But it cracks me because like Hugh Fink, that guy, he's been a producer on a lot of stuff. So the fact that he was so like just like this is a guy he's made his rounds through Hollywood for years. Working like you said with Nickelodeon, I believe if I'm not mistaken, that name, I'm pretty sure he's also worked with like Judd Apatow and a few other people in the industry, like big names. It just cracks me up that as many things as he's worked on, the idea of like, oh my God, what was that like? Like just like the excitement behind it, it just cracks me up, because that tells you that it's a whole nother world of production.
Right.
So,
and I've heard horror stories of like writers' rooms and, showrunners that I won't name, and like things, things that have been said, people being made to cry and all this stuff. And I'm just like, that's Tuesday at WWE. I'm just, there's no, you can't, I will go, I wish there was like, instead of roast battle, like some sort of a, I show up every week and I'm like, all right, you tell your story about your horrible experience right in on this show, and I'll tell you about Vince McMahon looking at me like he wanted to bite me.
Yeah. God. What the hell's going on with my camera here?
I can definitely see a show in the future that is, group therapy, but it's a competitive reality show.
Oh my God, that's actually
right.
like brilliant and like terrifying.
I'd watch it.
Like that's
Well, Josh, that could be our next writing project, buddy. We can
I mean,
we can start hammering that out.
Yeah, you just described something that in like 3 years there's going to be like a term for, or there's just like, it's like those film books talking about the internet trying to explain it. And you're like, YouTube, you're talking about YouTube, it's like oh, stress tube, you're talking about stress tube. Yeah, and they're like, oh yeah, it's competitive group therapy. It's like, yeah, it makes me think if there was a late night with David Letterman, Warren Zevon was on. It might have been the first time Zevon was on the show, so this was early 80s, and he was already sober, and he was talking about recovery, and Dave asked him about that. Obviously this is part of the pre-interview. Dave's not, breaking his anonymity on TV or something, and the way Zevon described it, he goes, "Oh yes, they had me do something called intervention therapy," which just the idea that that's a foreign concept. Now that's a TV show, and the concept of an intervention. Oh, we're going to have an intervention, whereas even just adding the word therapy at the end of it, he's like, "Well, they did something to me called intervention therapy, and it was a very humbling, humiliating experience." It's just like, man, it's wild what becomes part of the lexicon.
It became a running gag on How I Met Your Mother.
I mean, geez.
Okay, guys, real quick, I do apologize. I don't know what's going on with my camera here. It's just froze up, and now it's not even working. So I will be the mystery person in that picture that is of me passed out working on my friend's TV pilot. So that works.
Well, you just spoiled it.
Yeah, I know. Sorry. My apologies, gentlemen, but I don't know what the hell's going on with this thing. Again, everything is kind of packed up, ready to go, and I think some things are kind of on whatever level. But all right. So
yeah, I don't know. I can't see your face, so I don't know if you're like loading up for another question or just kind of putting your pants back on.
I mean, well, now that my camera's not working, you guys don't have to know if I'm not wearing pants or if I am. So
lucky ass. Anyway,
but all right, let me try real quick here, see if this is going to work. Please go ahead, guys. I'm sorry.
Well, I will say, Matt, in a way, you're a lot like Tim Curry, right? You can tell a lot about a person by where they recognize you from.
Yeah.
The first place that I know you from, the first thing that kind of got you on my radar was a podcast, actually. And that's when I found out that you watch wrestling.
I do watch wrestling. As a matter of fact, it's on my shirt.
So would you like to talk about the formation of We Watch Wrestling? How did that start up? Plug in your headphones.
Uh-oh. That started.
Okay, I fixed it. I'm so sorry.
We got 35 minutes. I've had nothing to say until now, and then all of a sudden,
why are Daddy and Daddy? The We Watch Wrestling podcast. Right now, it's me and Vince Averill, and me and Vince Averill. We're best friends, lifelong wrestling fans, and became friends really through a mutual love of pro wrestling. We knew each other from stand up in New York, but that was we were both on the same taping of Live at Gotham, and we were buddies. We were hanging out that day, but I'll never forget. He comes walking up to me and he goes, "Hey, somebody told me that you watch wrestling." And I was like, yeah, I watch wrestling. And he's like, you should come over to my place for Mania this year. And then we've been inseparable ever since. We're going to WrestleMania next week. And we're actually landing. We're going to be at a wrestling show when this is just too perfect. I'm going to be at a wrestling show when the CBS sitcom I'm co-starring on premieres to the world. But the Airbnb we have has a DVR he checked, so we'll be able to go back and watch it. But the show didn't start with just him and I. It started with when I moved to LA, Tom Sibley, very funny actor, he was doing more stand-up at the time. I don't know if he does as much anymore now, but this was 2012 getting into 2013, and he just called me up and he was like, "Hey, do you want to start a podcast?" And I was like, "Yeah." And he's like, what do you want to talk about, like conspiracy theories or something? Because I used to enjoy. Man, conspiracy theories suck now. All the joy has been sucked right out of them the last few years. But God, they used to be downright fun. But I said to him, I was like, I don't think I could talk about it. Like, I don't see that could last more than a couple of months. I don't know what I would wind up talking about. I was like, honestly, the only thing that I feel confidently I could consistently talk about every single week without repeating myself is pro wrestling. And then that started the ball rolling, because again, it was like at a time where it was like, well, how do you record a podcast? What do we? And he's like, well, my brother has equipment. My brother knows how to do all this stuff. And I was like, okay, well, the only other thing is Vince is, he stopped in Detroit for a while, taking care of some stuff at home, and he's on his way to moving to LA. And I was like, I can't do a wrestling show without Vince Averill. And Tom's like, okay, I kind of know Vince. And I remember hanging up the phone and thinking, boy, I hope those two wind up getting along, because this is the only way that this show will work. And so the first year of the show was Tom knew nothing about pro wrestling, and I was like, well, that's it. That's our angle. Like, it's us teaching Tom about wrestling. And very quickly, in teaching Tom about wrestling and showing him wrestling, Tom found out he just didn't like wrestling. And then there were a few years where his resentment just grew. And then eventually his brother Rob moved back east, and so we were just kind of producing the show on our own. We pretty well figured out how to do it from there. And then eventually Tom was like, I just can't do this anymore. I don't like wrestling. And we were like, okay. And then Vince and I didn't really know what to do, because we were like, well, that seemed like it was the show was, because even more than just us showing wrestling to Tom, the show was about our friendship. The show, the show was, wrestling was the subject, but we were the the subject matter of the show, if that makes
Right.
sense. And then so we kind of sat on it for a little while, maybe a day or two. And I remember saying to Vince, I was like, well, I'm definitely going to keep watching wrestling, and I know you're just going to keep watching wrestling, and I know I'm just going to keep talking to you about wrestling. So we might as well do it into microphones to people who, are waiting to hear what we think about this, that, or the other. And so that's been the last few years, and it's very it's interesting that like the show has gone through so many different phases or eras, or I don't even know what you want to call it, but it's just it's still just about our friendship, and it is very much like it's much less like this coming week it's going to be much less of us running down the Mania card and being like, who do we think's going to win, what do we think this means for the business, and more about like where are we going to go eat while we're in Dallas, and like what should we go to, this show or that show, and oh man, when we're at WrestleCon, our table is going to be next to Sonny and Francine, and like, is Sonny even going to show up? Is she going to be in jail? Is she going to be out of jail? Like the people watching, I'm more excited about going to WrestleCon than maybe anything else. You have no idea the people watching and the wrestler watching and seeing these fans like interact with the wrestlers. And one year we had a table next to MVP, and MVP like he's like debating politics with this Trump guy, and eventually the guy like wanders away, and I was like wow, that was getting pretty intense. And he goes you don't understand, this guy follows me around the country. He looks at my schedule of like autograph signings and events and appearances I'm going to be making, and he shows up to debate politics with me. Like this is beyond, like, it's just the great. And then like the next table down was Tony Atlas, and somebody brought him like a styrofoam container of chitlins, and he would not stop talking about, somebody brought me chitlins, I can't believe it, I got chitlins here. Anybody that would walk by, he would tell them, somebody brought me chitlins. These are free chitlins. And I remember he says it to MVP. He goes, MVP, somebody brought me chitlins. And MVP, he didn't even look at him. He's just looking straight ahead with like this 50-yard stare, and he just goes, and I quote, he bookended it with the word Tony. He goes, Tony, throw that shit away, Tony. Called him Tony twice. Seeing like badass Billy Gunn and Austin Gunn like across the way, Rob Feinstein trying to shake Billy Gunn's hand and him looking at him like, I'm not shaking your hand, you disgust me, and just going back to the person he was talking to. I mean, it was just incredible. Some kid walking by with his phone trying to take a picture of Billy Gunn, and his son Austin getting in the way and goes, I see you there sneaking a picture, $25. Like anytime there was commotion, it's Bob Backlund is screaming. I mean, these are I can't wait to be back. We don't know what's going to happen. We were there one year. God rest his soul. Scott Hall was across from us, and Davey Boy Smith's son, Harry Smith, decided he was going to confront the two people he felt had disrespected his late father publicly, Scott Hall and Jake the Snake Roberts. And we're sitting there. We didn't know what was going on until after the fact. We see Harry Smith march by and see him talking to Scott Hall. And apparently Scott Hall's like, hey, I ain't got no problem with your old man. If I just disrespected him, I apologize. I got no problem with you. I got no problem with your dad. We see Harry Smith march the other direction where we know Jake the Snake is. We just hear commotion. And we see security coming and stuff. And then we see Harry Smith storming out. Came to find out, Jake the Snake was much less apologetic than the bad guy. And at one point, it built to the point where he's like, you said my old man was no good. He's like, your old man was no good. Harry Smith threw Harry Smith threw a cup of coffee at Jake the Snake, and it went all over him, all over his autographs.
Oh
and shit.
God!
Oh yeah, it's the greatest.
Wait, see, it's like you and Josh are wrestling fanatics. Josh and buddy, I will always apologize for this. When we're not that far apart. Like the three of us are not far apart in age at all. So we all grew up like watching WrestleMania back in like the '80s and everything else. When you had Hulk Hogan, Macho Man Randy Savage, the $1 Million Man, Jake the Snake, Roddy Piper, like all the Hacksaw Jim Duggan, all the classic WWF wrestlers. That's what I grew up with. So all this stuff now, I tried watching it. Now I'm not going to negate the fact that there is a lot of writing that goes into it. You can tell that there's a lot of writing. I didn't know it was so brutal for the writers. As you put it, like, the whole, like, just like things being changed, like Vince McMahon's notes, like being instated as the show is pretty much being like filmed. Like you're still making these things, like you're not even on crunch time. You were there. And these changes and alterations have to happen. So while I personally do not watch wrestling, but I don't really watch a lot of TV as it is right now. But while I have fallen far away from watching wrestling in the last decade or so, one thing I will say is even if I am lost on like the plots, like who's the bad guy, who's the good guy, who's like the one that's being hyped up this season, or returning champions defending the belts, all that stuff, I will say that the writing that goes into it, holy shit. Like first off, I don't know how you write for wrestling. Like I wouldn't even know where to begin. Like, writing a short, writing a TV pilot, writing a feature film, got that down pat. Writing something like wrestling, even for me that I've been writing for almost like 20 years, I don't think I could do that. So I mean, much respect to you, because I'm not going to say it's soul crushing. It's like, I'm sure it was great. It's just like, it just sounds like it's like a shit, like a metric ton of, I gave away my F-bomb, a metric ton of, I'm trying, Josh, a metric ton of stress.
Yeah, it's because everything can change for any reason. You don't you don't show up to the set of How I Met Your Mother and suddenly you find out what's Doogie Howser's real name? I can't think. Neil Patrick Harris has broken his has broken his leg, so he's not going to be on the show for the next 6 months. There's that, or you're not gonna. At no point were the people writing Cheers like it's like, oh, George Wendt missed his flight. He's stuck in Toledo. So it's just,
oh yeah.
There's all sorts. I remember, if somebody gets popped for like a drug test, a wellness test, or if I remember I was writing something for Chris Jericho, and
oh God.
and it was funny too because there was a lot of pressure on we were starting a program with him and Randy Orton, and we didn't know why. And we just kind of like fudged past the first week where it's just like, well, why don't we just have Jericho attack him and we'll figure it out on the back end. And I remember Vince McMahon looking at me like, we're going to have a good goddamn reason when we come back next week. And before that happened, Jericho was in some foreign country for, a wrestling show. I want to say they were in South America. I honestly don't remember. And he was the heel. And he did something, something bad, but nothing. He didn't burn the country's flag, but he definitely wiped his face with it, or blew his nose with something to get some cheap heat. And this was, whatever the country they were in was not cool with that. And so he wound up getting suspended. So there was any of a million reasons why things would change. Most common of them would be Vince throwing it out the window. But as far as the actual writing, when you start, you know, put it this way: a lot of wrestling fans who don't know any better blame the writers for how bad the show is. Whereas if those same fans could read the first drafts or actually see the show that was written, the story arc that was originally intended, with all the beats each week building up to the pay-per-views and then to the big blow-off, it would start a new golden era of professional wrestling, you know, particularly for WWE, because it is that good, and these people do know wrestling and they do care. Even the ones who come from, you know, just a TV writing background, the ones who can make the transition into WWE, because it is not a typical TV writing job by any stretch. And things are done very particularly, and they could be done a lot easier and more efficiently if they were done the way that every other TV show does them. But that's just not Vince McMahon's way. So you can either adjust that world, or you can go back to doing what you're doing before. But like a lot of soap opera writers, not a lot, but I know that there have been soap opera writers who have adjusted well to that world, because it is a breakneck pace, and, you know, it needs to be done, and it needs to be done now, and we're moving on, and we're telling long-term storytelling. Ideally, that's the idea. But with all those different factors, anything can change for any reason. But typically, the key is to book backwards, to see what you're trying to get to, and then figure out how it is you're getting there. Because more times than not, when there's a wrestling program that's not working, and by program I mean two wrestlers, you know, engaged in a storyline, it's because they have just decided, well, these are two marquee names, and we're going to put them together. And then suddenly they realize, well, this guy can't lose, and the other guy can't lose. And then they ask the worst question you can ask when you're booking pro wrestling: how do we get out of this? And then as soon as you're asking, how do we get out of this, you are killing your territory. Larry Matisic wrote a whole book about it called Drawing Heat the Hard Way. Anybody who's interested in the process of booking professional wrestling, or is just curious about pro wrestling, I can't recommend that book enough. It's one of the few books, you know, like I enjoy reading, but sometimes it takes me a while. I've been reading The Stand for a few years now, you know, not even because of the length, just because I'm like, Jesus Christ, we're still meeting more people. We're still walking around. I'm just like, I just want to get through this just so I can have read it, because I've always wanted to read it. But like that book, Born Standing Up by Steve Martin, I'm Thinking of Ending Things. These are books that I like read in one day, where I was just like, I can't get enough of this. So I recommend that one enough. I can't recommend that one enough. But yeah, I mean, that's the idea. The idea is, how does this is the trick with pro wrestling. How does everyone come out better in the end? You know, because somebody needs to be standing up at the end. But the guy who loses, how does he then not become just a piece of garbage after that? What do we do with him after that? You know, and this is also talking in terms of when wins and losses matter. WWE has unfortunately really eroded the meaningfulness of that in their particular territory. I mean, I feel like other places do a better job, but they also struggle, because what WWE does dictates to the entire landscape, because they're the brand name, they're Kleenex, they're Vaseline, they're the it, you know.
Yeah.
So, but as far as the writing of it, it's not for everyone. That is for sure. You're absolutely right there.
Well, can I coming away from that, we there's one thing we've not really spoken much about, and it's something that's really coming up that you're that you've been part of for the production here. You have a show coming on CBS. I don't know how much you can discuss about this or not. Obviously, it's just being aired. I believe. What is it next week? Next Friday?
Series premiere is Thursday, March 31st, 9:30 p.m. on CBS, the
CBS.
Columbia Broadcasting System. Come on down to CBS. We've got the TV shows you love.
So this show is called, for those of you that are not familiar with it, it's called How We Roll. It actually stars Matt on our show tonight and Pete Holmes, actually a longtime collaborator of yours through a bunch of the shorts through College Humor and other iterations. Like as I mentioned earlier, you starred next to him, I believe, playing both Commissioner Gordon and the Riddler, if I remember right, with the Batman series, correct?
Yeah, if I wasn't Commissioner Gordon in the scene, I was whoever the villain was. I mean, I was.
Yeah.
God, I was Bane. I was Scarecrow.
That's right. You were Bane. That's right. That's right. And no, I was actually Josh. I was actually showing this to Danielle, my girlfriend. I was showing. She's not a Batman person at all. She hates Batman. Can't stand him. Next to Batman is Captain America. She cannot stand either one of those two.
Weird.
But I show her this, and I showed her the quick. And this is just like a leeway into this show. But I showed her the clip from first. I showed her the catfish thing that I talked about earlier today.
Yeah.
But I also showed her the episode where Commissioner Gordon, Batman, and the Penguin were in the same room, and Batman kept killing people, thinking that they were just going to sleep.
Right.
Like that was just like, batarang to the head, slicing a guy's neck open, all like shooting the Penguin, all that stuff. But so like you and Pete Holmes have actually, she was laughing, but it's like you and Pete Holmes have been going back for like years with this. So now you guys are starting opposite in the sitcom series. How surreal is that for you? Because we mentioned earlier the jumping leap pad to leap pad. Now I know that this is only season 1, and television is volatile when it comes to what's on the air. Is it going to get canceled? Is it going to stay on? What are your thoughts on all this? And how did you and Pete Holmes get to this point with How We Roll?
Well, I mean, like I said, I'm just trying to stay present. I had fun shooting it, and hopefully people have fun watching it, and then we'll see what happens. And I'm also curious to see what happens if it doesn't come back, then nothing changes for me. And then if it does come back, hopefully nothing changes for me. I don't know what I'm curious to literally I'm curious to see what happens. I don't know what it's like to be on a TV show that people are watching. I've been on TV, but, I've been on TV shows before, and no one, not even my family, has tuned in.
It's okay. No, my family doesn't watch this podcast, so it's fine. I get it.
Right? Yeah.
Mom, did you catch the episode? Oh, was that tonight? Like, it's okay, Mom.
Yeah, I mean, it's just like anything. It's I have a friend who's a doctor, and I'm like, I'm sure he doesn't call his mom before every surgery. Like, hey, I'm working again today. It got to the point where I was just like, well, if they want to catch it, maybe they'll see me. But as far as, I mean, I've had a relationship with Pete. I was talking about this the other day, longer than with my wife. We go back to like the first job either of us ever had was for a car battery commercial for Sears Die Hard, and that was when we realized, you know what, this is kind of fun. I think I get what's funny about you. You get what's funny about me. We complement each other well. I can see where you're going. Why don't we keep doing this? And then the fact that we get to be on this TV show together now, and this is not, I know, Pete had Crashing and he had his talk show and stuff. This is not, Pete's not one of the producers on their show. I mean,
yeah,
they were. The idea is it's called How We Roll because it's based on Tom Smallwood's journey, getting laid off as a factory worker and then pursuing his dream to become a pro bowler. And that's a real guy from Saginaw, Michigan. He actually did that. and so that's who Pete plays, and I'm Carl, basically his nemesis, who just hangs out at the bowling alley, and it's this thing where it's like, when they were putting together the pilot presentation, it was like, if this thing goes, make it like Cheers in a bowling alley. And it's like, well, we need people to hang out in the bowling alley. Like, who are the regulars? And they posed him with who were some performers you enjoy, working with. And I don't know who else was on that list, but I got an audition, and then it's out of Pete's hands. Then it's up to me to, and it is one of those things where it's like, even if because it's like, I was talking to my friend Dan Bogdahl, who's been on a lot of shows and has been through this process a lot, and he's like, oh buddy, he's like, the fact that this thing went to air, the fact that you're on it, he's like, the amount of people from the network and the production and the studio and the this and the that this had to go through. He's like, it's a lottery ticket, the odds.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And so I feel very, humbled about that I got to, I know how to do this. I remember doing the pilot, and the showrunner Mark Gross was like, where did you come from? Like, it's because he's like, no, the art of sitcom acting is a dying art form. He's just like, there's just not people who know how to do this. And he's like, that's why we go to so many people who have a theater background, because they know how to perform in front of an audience. And I was like, honestly, it's just from doing stand-up, from doing commercials. And really, I think my best stuff, the acting that I really enjoyed the most, that I got the most excitement out, was showing up at Conan to do sketches. Because it was always like that same day, it was going to live or die at the, because people were like, oh, was that like nerve-wracking performing in front of the audience and like all the cameras and stuff? And I was like, no, that was a breeze. What was stressful is like doing the dress rehearsal for Conan and like seeing if this thing is going to live or die. And feeling like, it doesn't matter. The writer, everybody put in as much work as they can. And now it's kind of on me to sell this thing. And it was just exhilarating. The thing I loved the most was showing up at Conan, and whoever the first person I saw, whether it was the costume person or the stage manager, whoever the first person saw me would be like, do you know what you're doing today? And I'd say, no. They just asked me, are you available tomorrow? And I showed up. And that excitement of just, they trusted me to be able to show up and do the performance, whatever it is, put it in front of me. And I'll be like, okay, this is what we're doing. I loved that. I loved that, that feeling, that excitement of like not knowing what is going to happen. And then, all right, let's go and try it. And, running it a couple times, doing it for Conan, and then it lives or dies. I remember the very first thing I ever did at Conan, was a parody of the Whitey Bulger movie, the Johnny Depp one. I can't think of what it was called right now. But I can't believe it's a great movie. But my character was Tidy Whitey Bulger, and so I'm dressed from head to waist like Whitey Bulger.
Oh my god!
Then I'm just wearing tidy whiteys, and literally it's going, we're a go, and I'm standing behind the curtain. They went to commercial. When we come back, the curtains are going to open up, and I'm going to come out with a baseball bat and threaten Conan and Andy. And literally, while they're in commercial, I remember the band is playing. The stage manager comes up to me and he goes, "Dude, it's cut." And I was like, "What?" And he goes, "I don't joke around about this. It's cut. Conan just cut it last minute, literally last minute." And then I went back and I was talking to the writer, and he goes, you know what? We're going to do it on Monday. The movie opens tonight. He's like, I know what happened. We did a wacky character in the monologue, and now Conan's sitting there thinking, why are we doing another wacky character in Seg 2? He's like, they'll bring you back. And they brought me back. But there is that, excitement of just anything can happen. So with the sitcom, how we roll, it has been a lot less stressful because it's like easing into a warm tub doing this show, because everything that I've done has prepared me for this. And so Mark Gross was saying to me, he's like, where did you come from? And I was like, I know how to do this. I know how to perform a scene, in this space for an audience, be funny, know when to hold for the laughs too, and all that stuff. And it's just been, and I'm in a great spot because I'm not one of the leads. So there's no exposition. I don't have to remember anything except for my stupid, dumb, funny, insult or, quirky, thing, or I'm just the guy hanging out at the bowling alley, always eating curly fries and hot dogs. So it's just the dream job of all dream jobs, kids.
Work hard, go to college. You too can do this.
And someday you too can eat cold curly fries for hours at a time.
Oh God. Well, this is like what you were saying earlier. There's one thing that you said that, and one thing I also said earlier, as I mentioned earlier, I don't watch much TV. It takes a lot for me to really watch a TV show.
Yeah.
My greatest regret was that with the show Scrubs, that I did not get into it right away. It took me 3 years before I'm like, fine, I'll watch this dumbass show. And then I was like, oh my God, this show's brilliant.
Yeah.
But and even with a show like Scrubs, that show lasted, I'm just going to say 8 seasons, because the 9th season was, it was a season, but it was supposed to be a spinoff. Doesn't count. People don't realize the work that goes into not just making a skit for an internet site or YouTube, or for making a short film or even feature film. The amount of work that goes into a television series, of all things. Because you have to have everything in accordance to what needs to be done, and then you film a pilot, and with that pilot, it's shown to a test audience, and that test audience is the make or break. Absolute, unequivocally. If they're not laughing, if they don't approve of it, it gets scrapped. It just gets it. Josh and I spoke about this a few weeks ago. One of our favorite directors is Kevin Smith. Scrubs. My God, I'm stuck on Scrubs. Clerks had a television pilot with Jim Brewer playing Randall.
Yeah.
And if you watch this pilot, it only went through a test audience, and I think 20 years later, it makes its way onto YouTube. And I can see why the show didn't make it, but didn't have
as far as it did.
I'm surprised it got 5 minutes in, but the thing is that so with this, it went through this whole labor of love, everything, and you and Pete, who have been working together since, as you put it, that Die Hard battery commercial way back when. You guys have been working closely with each other and have become good friends over the years, and now you are actually working with this friend of yours. What you have is pretty much the dream of not just comedians performing in little town somewhere in New York City, Los Angeles, my hometown, Jacksonville, Florida. You have what a lot of actors in not just in the city of in Los Angeles, people have come out here worldwide to do what you are doing now. So for that, to get to where you started to going to where you are right now, dude, that is absolutely awesome. Josh, I'm going to break my rule. I know I have one per episode. I haven't said mine yet. So that's fucking awesome.
He said it.
I said it.
I said it.
The gift meaningless, if you ask me.
You know what? Listen, how about this, Josh? You make that T-shirt for me. that you said you were going to make for me.
Okay.
And then you shipped me that T-shirt with my absolutely awesome Ghostbusters birthday present that you've had in your possession for 6 years now.
Like 8. But who's counting?
And I will wear this shirt on our show. And that way I can be reminded when my camera decides to work that I only have one F-bomb per show.
Fair enough.
Okay. But no, but Matt, look, everything that you're doing it's absolutely awesome, man. It really is. Without ever having known each other in any way, shape, or form, this is very much like what people deal with in the industry. I've known who you were for years. Josh has known who you were for years. This is the first time you ever met with us at all. But seeing where you started, me seeing you perform back in 2009 in New York City, and then seeing where you are now, I mean, dude, that's absolutely awesome. It really is. Like, I mean,
thank you.
So
I don't know how to feel about the TV show. I hope people like it. It doesn't. Surreal isn't the right word because it just doesn't feel like. Well, it doesn't feel like I'm on a TV show because I'm not. It hasn't started yet. But there is. I don't know what. Put it this way. I got the audition and I just wanted to do a really good audition. And I didn't know anything about the show. I didn't know Pete was involved because that's the other thing. Pete wouldn't call me up and be like, hey, I got you this audition. I booked the lead on a sitcom, blah, 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 because he knows how this business works. You don't talk about things. I mean, when we were shooting the pilot, there was like another job coming up that he was much more hands-on involved in that he wasn't comfortable telling me about yet that I was going to get to be involved in because we don't know. And it's just, what's the point in? So my point is, and this is also in COVID. This is still in like late 2021. Obviously we're still in COVID, but I mean,
yep.
We're talking like pre-vaccine. I think the vaccines had just started for certain people. And the audition was, tape it at your house on your phone, because that's the crazy thing. Like in 2020, like the only money, like I somehow wound up getting, I'm just so grateful. I wound up getting a couple of commercials in the can before the pandemic started. Then my wife and I actually booked a commercial together during the pandemic. First time we were out of the house without our son in months was when we went to the fitting for that job. It was crazy driving in the car and it was silent. It was foreign. So, and like Conan sketches, they would be like, here's a script, shoot it yourself on your phone. If there's any costume or props, we'll have someone leave it in your driveway. And then email us the files and we'll cut it together. I mean, like,
oh, wow.
There's a couple of those that, obviously any sketch I'm in from like, April 2020 on, it was that process. Or like eventually we wound up doing like Zoom sketches. And there was one, I think I was definitely the first outside the core group of the show that was invited to go to Largo, and the last sketch I ever did on his show, I'm dressed like as a cicada. And what's funny too is we were doing it was so different from the way that they did the show when they were at Warner and they were like, had an audience to come in later. We shot the sketch, we did the bit, and I thought we were rehearsing. Eventually Conan's like, all right, that's great. That's it. And I was like, oh, I didn't know. I thought that we were just doing a rehearsal of it. Like, I didn't know that was the last of the last. But so I got the audition for How We Roll. And I was just like, for whatever reason, is it odd or is it God or is it a hot dog? Who knows what these things are? But I just had this feeling like really put some effort into this audition for whatever reason, because sometimes you get an audition, it's just like, ugh, shoot it once in my office and just be like, all right, I'm done here. Send it in. I don't. It's just like, just that pandemic depression of just like, what's the point of anything? And for whatever reason, I was just like, I'm gonna really do my best. I ran the lines with my wife. I got her input. Like, we did it a couple of times. She's a great director. And I sent it in, and I was like, I felt so good about the audition that I didn't care if I booked it or not anymore, because I was like, I felt so good about myself. I was like, you know what? You did the work, leave the results. Just, it's out of my hands. Like, I was just so grateful that I was in the headspace to be like, you know what? Why don't you do right by yourself and just do this as well as you can? And then I wound up booking the pilot, and I was just like, that's crazy. All I cared about was honestly, I guess that's my point, is like, all I cared about was doing a good audition. Everything since then has just been just this weird, nice, bonus. I don't know. So I don't know. We'll see what people think of the show. I think it's good. But again, I watch pro wrestling, so what do I know?
It's a brand
But it
that
is.
says to me all the time.
It's a funny show. It's
I do not.
I mean, it's got heart. It's the rest of the cast is incredible. It is very humbling just being around like real actors, and I'm just like, oh yeah, no, I know how to do my weird dumb little thing, but like you people you're actually real professional like actors. Like, okay, I'll just be over here eating curly fries and saying dumb things that they tell me to say.
Oh God!
Don't let me get in the way.
It's like all this talk. Okay, hear me out. I thought of like a skit that I think I'm actually going to write, whether it gets made or not. I'm going to have to write this tonight since I'm off the next like 2 nights now. First time, TV actor, finally on the big small screen, nationwide.
Mm-hmm.
This is a test to know if you've made it in the industry. You walk into different places. Oh yeah, I'll have this, and like someone like gets in front of you line. You look at the person's like, do you know who I am? What? No. Like, oh well, shit. Okay. And then it's like, go to a restaurant, sit down. It's like, I want that table right there. Oh, it's reserved. Do you know who I am? What? No. Like, oh well, fine. That table works back there. Like, whatever. By the bathroom. I don't care. It's like, just go through this whole thing. Do you know who I am? Do you know who I am? And then finally, as you're walking down the street, there's like a homeless guy. It's like, oh, you're in that TV show. Made it.
Perfect.
Okay, it's just in my head. It's not written, so it's like a very, very bad pitch. But you know what? I was laughing when I had my phone muted when I thought about it. So,
here's my pitch. You're walking down the street, and the homeless guy is like Jamie Farr or John Ratzenberger, somebody who was on a sitcom. Clearly, these gentlemen have plenty of money, but you see what I'm saying? Like, I'm talking out loud. Like, it's like, hey, it's like, oh no. Like, is it really that tough out there? I remember hearing the story. This was after De Niro had won the Oscar for Godfather 2. Did he win an Oscar for Godfather 2? I don't know. He had just won an Oscar for something. And he was getting ready for Taxi Driver. So he's literally driving a taxi at night. And some actor got in the car and recognized him. And he was just like, oh, my God, is it really this tough out there? You just won the Oscar. And you're driving a cab still? I love that.
That's great. That's actually a damn good idea.
Yeah.
No, we just got to find like an actor from like, I don't know, 2000 or something. I don't know. Get Lindsay Lohan.
like the lead guy from How I Met Your Mother or something.
I mean, I was going to go with Lindsay Lohan, but I mean, it's like that works too. Like, I mean, we can
I
go.
was just kind of in a commercial with her. It turned out I wasn't in the actual commercial. I was in the teaser for the Planet Fitness commercial that aired at the Super Bowl. But like on the day we showed up, and I was sitting there, and I was like, this production's weird. They're not talking about what's going on here. There's no call sheet. And then I started talking to the other actors, and they're like, oh, dude, Dennis Rodman's here. Lindsay Lohan, there's William Shatner right now walking to his trailer. And I like turn around. I'm like, oh my God, that's William Shatner. Bizarre. And then somebody was like, I bet you this is a Super Bowl commercial. That's why there's like celebrities and stuff. But yeah, so full circle.
Oh, so I can't use Lindsay Lohan then.
And actually, if you want to go even fuller circle, my wife was the voice in when Pete did those E-Trade baby commercials. He's like FaceTiming with a girl baby, and my wife was the voice of the girl baby. And she improvised the line, like playing around. It's like a jealous girlfriend type thing. And my wife says, you're not with that milkaholic Lindsay. I don't know if you remember this. She just picked the name Lindsay out of thin air. But Lindsay Lohan sued E-Trade and was like, this is true. You're taking a shot at me. I'm the most well-known Lindsay in the world, and
my God.
You're slandering my name. And they pulled the spot. This was like, and so it's like,
oh my God.
So then back to what I'm talking about before about like being like a working class actor. It's just like, oh my God, all the hard work to actually get into a commercial that's actually running on the air, and then to have someone just no, and then they pull it, and it's just like, all right, well, we'll figure out what we're doing for rent next month some other way.
Then you know what? Then I think that like after that revelation, maybe I should take back my Lindsay Lohan jokes because I have a lot of them. Lindsay,
very litigious. She's very litigious. You better watch your.
I'm telling you, it's like this. The WADcast is a free program. We don't. Josh and I, unless Josh is like siphoning money from the company, Josh. We don't make any money, right, Josh? Buddy. We have paychecks.
Well, there's
LA's expensive, buddy. Even like in the South Bay and Long Beach and Torrance, like that, it's not a great area, but it's expensive.
As far as you know, we don't make anything.
I'm just
I can't see
monkey.
your blank stare. It doesn't work.
The fact that you know me that well, that I'm just staring at you right now. Oh God. But no, it's like all that is absolutely awesome, Matt. Like it's really cool that you're going this far, and like you said, no one knows where the TV series is going to go. It's obviously like the first season outside the pilot with the test audience. The first season is the next big. Are we going to keep this going or not?
Sure.
But there have been a lot of sitcoms that have been kind of like lost to the sands of time. Sorry to sound dramatic there, but a lot of them also didn't really have heart behind them. Like even MASH, although it was like a sitcom, MASH had some very serious moments in it. Scrubs, although it's a sitcom, had some very serious moments in it. There was a lot of heart in those shows.
Yeah, this show that we're doing has struck a good balance between the heart and the humor, because it's one of these things too where like when it started we were like, well, I don't want to speak for anyone else, but I was like, yeah, all right, the sitcom, like whatever. Somebody asked me not too long ago, we do a Q&A every week on our Patreon for We Watch Wrestling, and somebody was like, what are your career goals? And I'm like, just to be working. I don't what I have no like this the loftiness goes out the window, where it's just like when I'm faced with the reality of like, We've got mouths to feed.
Yeah.
So I'm like, I just want to be working. And so the idea that they would let me be on this TV show, I'm like, great. I'm like, I don't care if I think this show's funny or not. But I'm not going to sit here and lie to you. Like, it is actually rather funny show. I mean, this is the truth. I mean, this is in the trailer, so I'm not giving anything away. But there's a moment where the wife, who's played by Katie Lowe, she's incredible. You know her from a ton of things. She was on Scandal. Pete is trying to decide, like, you know, he wants to be a pro bowler, but he's got to provide for his family. It's not too dissimilar to what I'm talking about, like like any of us. And he's scared. And she says to him, like, she encourages him. She's basically like, look, you need to do this. And there's a moment where he says, what if I lose? And she says, but what if you win? And brother, I'm telling you, I have no reason to lie to you. I have no stake in this. At every run through, at every rehearsal, and on the day when we were shooting it, every time she said it, I got choked up because she's so good and the script was so good. And it was just like, and I didn't even want to like tell her that until like a few weeks later, because I'm like, I feel like I would get in my head if somebody came up to me and be like, dude, the way you give that line gives me tears in my eyes. I'd be like, how did I do that? What? So it's I don't know. You know, if people like it, great. If not, it kind of is. I feel like the same way about the audition, where I'm like, we did a good show, and I didn't expect to be proud of this. Is an awful thing I'm about to say. I didn't expect to be proud of the sitcom. You know, I just figured, all right, we're gonna be on a dumb sitcom in a bowling alley. Like, I don't care. Like, I don't need to be cool. I can just be on a sitcom. You know, I don't. You know, but then it turns out to be like, I don't know, something that I'm like, I was just surprised at how proud I am of the show that we've done. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like that's the industry 101 right there. Like the way you said, like, you know, that like exchanging the lines. And obviously I would never want you to disclose anything, because I know how you know, like the non-disclosure agreements and everything else work, all that stuff. Like you can only say so much about projects before they're even released. But the thing is what that line where he says, you know, like, you know, what if I lose? And she says, what if you win?
Yeah.
That is synonymous with the entertainment industry, because there's a lot of actors. I have a few friends of mine that I went to film school with that I dropped out. But these people, they went on to get their degrees, and one of them even went on to get a master's degree, and he works for his dad's company in, I think, Wisconsin somewhere. Furthest from what he wanted to do with his life.
Yeah.
You know, he took the safe bet, and that was all at the advice of his family. He still does stuff once in a while, but nothing really too groundbreaking. He's got like a wife and kids and decent income now. But that right there describes what it's like working in my mind, describes what it's like working in the industry, because there is a lot of self-doubt at times. And anyone listening to this podcast, re-record, like, you know, like the when after it goes on the website, if you don't catch the live, if you listen to this after I post on the website tonight, that goes for you too. If you are trying as hard as you can to get in the industry, understand there's no age limits. There's no, you know, it doesn't cap off after a certain time frame. Just keep busting your ass, because, you know, you may lose, but you may win. And either way, like, I mean, you never really lose until you stop trying. So that's, I mean, the line that they say in that show, like, that's awesome. That really is awesome.
I mean, it's the heart of the show. I forget, who was it? I can't think of the woman's name off the top of my head. She was the maid on The Jeffersons, and then she starred on 227.
Oh God. Oh
yeah.
Shit. Yes, I know who you're talking about.
I think she actually was like one of the producers on 227 as well. Like, she had a big hand in the show. Anyway, saw an interview with her, and apparently she got into acting later in life, or later than, what the concept of, well, I need to be doing this when I'm 19, otherwise the industry doesn't want me. And she was met by a lot of that sentiment by people in her life. And her answer was, well, somebody's got to play the mom. Somebody's got to play the aunt. Why the hell shouldn't it be me?
Yeah.
Because it's just, I don't know. Do you know how many times I've been like, I got to figure out how to do something else with my life, because this just isn't working right now. And then
get the whole just in case security option.
Sure.
Yeah.
And then and I went that route. I had, a day job, and I got my college degree, but the really scary thing is I'm so many years removed from doing any of those things that I'm like, anytime I get into one of those places of, I got to figure out how to do something else, I then have to answer that voice in my head with, I don't know how to do anything else. So I just have to keep trying to make this work. So,
Well, again, like we're all in our well, I'm the youngest here, but I'm only a few months away from 40. But the thing is the older we get, the more time presses on as far as we're too old to become like apprentices at like a plumbing company that wants to get like a young, fit, in shape kid to be an apprentice and learn the trade. Where like I'm getting closer. Like if this writing bit doesn't fail, I'm either going to have to step up my healthcare game a couple notches and advance in my healthcare career, or I can just eventually do what I'm doing, retire, become a Walmart greeter while I still work on my scripts. Like,
well,
I'm almost at Walmart greeter. We're getting there.
That's fine.
So, no offense to Walmart greeters, it's a joke.
Yeah.
A joke.
No, man.
Work is work.
You think of like Ken Jeong, like he became a doctor and was still like, I got an improv show. I got to,
Yeah, no, exactly. I don't think he got started until he was like in his late 40s with acting. Harrison Ford on Star Wars, Samuel L. Jackson. He was a social worker, I believe.
There's a pro wrestler, Britt Baker. She's a dentist.
Yep.
She has a practice, and then she's still showing up to do indie shows, and then winds up getting on AEW out of Jacksonville, Florida. And sure enough, she taps into some part of her personality, and she's without question the biggest female wrestler in the world right now. And her gimmick is, I'm better than you because I'm a dentist, Dr. Britt Baker, DMD,
Can you imagine watching this with your friends? It's like, oh my God, that's my dentist.
Right.
Like, wait, what? It's like, yeah, she removed 3 of my teeth. Like, what? Like,
yeah,
well, she didn't punch me, guys. Like, she just, she used tools.
No, but you brought up Harrison Ford. I'll never forget. He told the story on one of the talk shows where he said, the question was, how did you make it in Hollywood? He's like, well, I moved out here with a group of guys to all make it in acting. And one by one, they all moved back home.
Yeah.
And he's like, the only reason I made it is because I stayed. That's it. He was a carpenter. Like that's how he got Nick Offerman too. It was a carpenter. It's so funny. You mentioned the apprenticeship of plumber. There are so many times I will beat myself up with this resentment, this regret. When I was 20, I was living on Nantucket, and I was going to, I was looking for a job, and I called up this carpenter who was looking for an apprentice. And he's like, well, how old are you? He's like, do you know anything about carpentry? And I was like, no. And he's like, how old are you? I was like, I'm 20. He goes, oh, perfect.
Yeah.
And he's like, call me on such and such, or meet me at such and such, whatever it was. And I just ghosted the guy because I was just scared. I was like, there's no way I could do that. There's no way I'd be any good at it. I was just like, and then to have that skill set, to be given that gift, that this guy would teach me this craft and pay me. And I just was too full of self-doubt to do that.
Oh yeah.
And then being in like, situations later in life where I'm like, oh, God, if only I wasn't such a dumbass, all that stuff we do to ourselves, that self-condemnation. But then, it's just everything. There are no mistakes. There's no mistakes in the world, and there's only just life.
Oh yeah. Well, basically, well, the thing is, you kept doing what you're doing, and you kept doing what you were doing, and as you said, Harrison Ford, he stayed.
Yeah.
I've mentioned this. I mentioned this a few times on the show, and like over the last 2 years or so. But Josh and I have spoken a few times about things that we'd written either separately or together. There is a friend of mine. I promised her I would leave her name the hell off the show because while she's proud of herself, it's also one of those things where she doesn't want too much clout coming her way.
Is it
But
me?
it's not. It's not you. No. I have a friend of mine that was she was training to become a professional dancer.
You sure it's not me?
What?
This guy.
Listen, you look great in ballerina shoes and a tutu, Josh, but it's not you.
I do.
You do. You really do. You're a pretty little princess. But but no, she's a good friend of mine from when I was in high school when we were freshmen together. Very talented dancer. She got a college scholarship for her dancing. Went to a great dance school. She was in a motorcycle accident because she's also a speed junkie. She loves motorcycles. I'm sorry, I'm not a speed junkie. I'm sorry, an adrenaline junkie. That almost went a whole different. Yeah,
Hope she got her life together.
Yeah, she has to have her fix, man. No, she's an adrenaline junkie. But she was racing someone on a highway in New Jersey. She got clipped and she ended up losing her left leg below, like right above the knee. So she was devastated, but after I think 3 or 4 years of physical therapy, getting used to her prosthetic and stuff like that, she actually got a job in dancing. And I wrote a part for her in a script because she worked at a gentleman's club at the time. But she didn't have to remove any clothing. She was actually a highlight of the show. I wrote a character named Amputatia based after her, like just messed up humor, and it made her laugh. But the thing is that she did that for a couple of years, but she never had to expose herself to anyone. But she was also doing like dance classes on the side. She had someone from like a theater in Broadway came to a gentleman's club and saw her. And she was just doing a dance. She was a highlight of the show. She didn't want anyone throwing dollars on the stage or anything. Like, she just wanted to dance. She was paid very well to bring to promote the club and bring in a crowd. She ended up making a good living for herself in New York City now as a professional dancer after years of trying and just not giving up on what she was trying to do. Like very Coyote Ugly-ish, ugly kind of stuff, but darling, if you're listening to this, I make fun of you. I do it out of love. I just joke with you, but it's like Coyote Ugly with one leg. So, but she did a great job. She busted her ass, and she really she made a name for herself. She's paid 6 figures a year now just training dancers and still doing her professional dancing. So it's like everything she sacrificed and refused to learn how to do because she wanted that specific thing to happen for her. Like she kind of like what's the word I'm looking for? Materialize her own dream.
Manifest
her
own destiny.
Manifest. That's what it is. Manifest. Manifested her own destiny, like paved her own way. She made it happen for herself. That has to be that is every ounce of what happens. If you're not good, like some people unfortunately may not be meant for what they're trying to be, but as long as they don't give up, it may happen eventually. God, that was such a long-winded side story.
Well, yeah, it happens when it's supposed to happen, and if it doesn't happen, there's something better, whether we are able to recognize it or not.
Yeah, but like I said earlier, like the saying goes, you never fail until you stop trying. That's when you failed.
Sure.
Like when you give up and you throw it in, that's where you failed. If something comes back and catch someone's attention years down the road, that's great. But I personally am happy that you didn't cave in and go with the carpenter, because who knows, that may not, what you're doing now may not be what you're doing now. Yeah, that whole.
I mean, right. That's the thing. Is it's that there's that old, story where a father's just like, is it a good thing or is it a bad thing? It's just like I forget all the parts in it where it's just like, I can't remember all the parts in it, but it's just like, something bad happens to his son and people are like, oh, that's so terrible. And he's like, well, is it a good thing or a bad thing? And then something happened. This is the worst example you can come up with because I don't remember any of the details. But it's the point of it is we don't know the whole story, do we? So it's if I put it this way, I am just so grateful for this opportunity coming at this point in my life, because had it come earlier in my life when I was a lot less comfortable with myself and more self-destructive, it could have ended very badly, and that's happened to a lot of people.
Absolutely.
A lot of my heroes, it ended way too early, for whatever reason. So, it's just I'm just trying to stay present and just I just want to talk to you guys. That's all I care about right now,
And no, I mean, I'm enjoying this conversation. Both me and Josh we're looking forward to this for the last like 2 weeks. I think he mentioned you. I was like, I don't know if I squealed, Josh, but I was probably like more excited than most people would be excited. And it's only because, again, going back to 2009, I'm like, I remember you performing. I leaned over to my ex-girlfriend. I was like, he's pretty good. I hope he goes somewhere.
That's nice.
So you mentioned that earlier. I'm like, oh man, do I tell him that I said the same thing about him like a long time ago? Because I was working at MTV Studios at the time. Like I thought my job was, like, my career was already like on a paved road. So it's just like,
right.
I'm like, I really hope he makes it. Like,
it's funny. I worked at MTV Networks until 2007. I think I quit my job.
I came in right after you. I came in late 2007. I stayed till late 2009, I think.
Yeah, I worked in ad sales in traffic in the commercial operations department.
Okay. I was
years.
Production. Yeah. I was production assistant. I worked a lot with TRL at the time.
Man, those were wild days, especially because I started working there in like December of 2001. And so like the people I would see in the lobby. Like, I remember seeing the cast of Dawson's Creek walking through the lobby because they were there to promote, like the series finale or something. Remember seeing like Perry Farrell and like CeCe DeVille and crazy. Yeah.
God.
I remember being outside smoking a cigarette. And Dave Attell was just walking by, and I was like, Dave, I love the show Insomniac. And he's like, yeah, all right, thanks, buddy.
Yeah. That was actually my favorite part, was like seeing the celebrities and interacting with them and being blown off in some of the, like, preferably a polite way. Seth Green and Seth MacFarlane were at MTV like one of the days I was working. And I wasn't a smoker yet. I was a late bloomer with my smoking, but but I remember I was just like standing outside, like talking to one of my friends. I was a smoker, and Seth Green and Seth MacFarlane. And it's funny with Seth Green because I actually ran into him at the cantina, the Star Wars Cantina in West Hollywood a few months back. But I saw Seth Green and Seth MacFarlane. I'm like, oh, I love Family Guy. And like, Seth Green's like, yeah, thanks. And Seth MacFarlane is like, oh yeah, loves you too. I'm like, oh yeah, your show loves me. All right. And he walks away. I run to Seth Green rather he knows the bartenders. One of the bartenders is a friend of mine, and she comes over. She was like, Seth Green's here. I look over, I see like this little like 5 foot tall dude. I'm like, oh yeah, I see him. So he steps outside. He steps outside. I step outside with a friend of mine that's visiting from New Jersey. She's like starstruck over Seth Green, and so I was like, he'll probably get a picture of you real quick, but he won't take his mask off, so you won't really have much proof it's him. You'll just see some short redhead guy with a mask on. But I'm like, oh yeah, Seth, man, I love Robot Chicken, and he says the same thing Seth MacFarlane said, like, a decade earlier. He was like, oh yeah, Robot Chicken loves you too. I'm like, I got blown off again, yay!
That's hilarious.
Hollywood.
Wow. Who knew that was the standard line?
I guess. I mean, it's just like, again, it's being blown up in a polite way, at least. Yeah. But those were good days. Like you said, it was wild. It is such a wild and surreal experience when you actually get to meet celebrities and joke with them at least a little bit if they are in the mood to joke back with you.
Yeah,
but
you got to get them in the right mood.
Yeah.
The only response I ever get from a celebrity is, get out of my house.
Why are you here? It's like, oh, this isn't where I parked my car. Oh God. Good times. But either way, yeah, that's all I got, man. Like, I mean, just, it's been great having you on the show. It's been awesome, like, just actually having a record with you, because as I've told Josh, it's going to be like, for me, it's going to be like a high school reunion where I go back and the popular kid of the school doesn't know who the hell I ever was, but I know who he was. So, and this is kind of like, you're the popular kid in high school. I'm kind of like the one that stayed in the corner the entire time, one like under the radar. But just because I've known who you were for so long, that it's awesome to actually finally be able to talk with you and just chat with you. So,
well, thank you for having me. This was a lot of fun.
So, Josh, is there anything that you have?
Yeah, I've got a couple of things. I've been wanting to ask you this for a while, so I'm just gonna do it. Matt, who's your favorite wrestler?
God damn. I think today, right now, in this moment, my favorite wrestler is Juicy, who I can't think of what his full name is right now. This is a SoCal guy. I see him at GCW. And I don't see him when they're on the road necessarily. Typically, he'll be tag teaming with Jacob Fatu. But last night at the world famous Roxy Music Club on the Sunset Strip, had, would assume, their first ever professional wrestling show. I could be wrong, but certainly their first GCW wrestling show. And Juicy wrestled Eli Everfly. Now, for those of you who might not know, Juicy is enormous. He must be, certainly he's well over the 300-pound mark. And he may very well be over the 400-pound mark. He is just a gigantic individual. Eli Everfly probably gets carded at every bar he's ever been to in his life, because the man, and I use that term loosely, looks like a child. And it was one of these shows where we knew the date, the time, the venue, and the company, but we didn't necessarily know the performers, and we certainly didn't know the matchups. So when Eli Everfly comes out, and he's got a long tongue, and he's obnoxious, and he's got like the Bono fly sunglasses, and he jumps around the ring, and he's just like this little bouncing, he's irritating. He's like a fly. He's a jerk. And he comes out and he's being a jerk to the crowd, and everybody's booing him. And then all of a sudden the music hits, and Juicy comes through the audience, through the curtain, and I doubled over laughing, because I was like, this is going to be exactly what the doctor ordered. This is why I go to wrestling shows, for a story. And the story here is there is a tiny, obnoxious little man boy who everybody hates, who is about to get destroyed by a 400-pound gigantic, I believe he's from the Pacific Island region, Polynesian.
My God,
background.
he's huge.
Oh, you Googled Juicy. Yes.
I did. I don't see. I don't know who anyone in modern day wrestling is. So, my Lord.
I don't know if you can see what his given name is, but obviously Juicy's a nickname. But it was great. It was just such a great match, and they did everything correctly, and it was just so much fun. So my favorite wrestler this week is Juicy, and he's one of these guys too where I'm like, this guy's a hell of an athlete. To be doing this with that much weight on his frame is unenviable. God bless him. Yeah, put on a hell of a show. Hell of a show.
Oh yeah. No, I'm 200 pounds. I pulled my leg muscle last year just trying to run 5 feet.
Oh
my God.
I've been clipping my toenails because I know it's going to be the worst experience of my life trying to bend over that far.
You know, honestly, it's funny you mentioned that, Josh. I was just talking to Danielle about like the cruise that she and I are going on in about like a week and a half's time now. About how I really want to go get a pedicure with her, just because you know, going to be in front of a lot of people without shoes on.
Sure.
And my first pedicure was last year with a friend of mine, and I was not expecting a pedicure. I thought we were just going to hang out, have a few drinks, and just catch up because COVID. We haven't seen each other in like a year or so. It's funny how close we are to everybody that we care about in Los Angeles, but how incredibly far away they are because of like just traffic or whatever. But we go to a salon to get pedicures, and I realized that I work healthcare. I've been working with COVID patients, like, oh God, since the beginning of all this. So a lot of personal, like, toenail clippings. I'm too tired to clip my toenails. I'll clip my fingernails, showers, all that stuff. But the toenails takes effort after working 18 hours straight in the COVID unit. We go there. I take my shoes off, and I realize that this might as well be that scene in Dumb and Dumber, where the guy takes his shoes off.
That's what I was thinking of. He's got the power tool, and there's sparks coming off.
That's it. Like, Ryan looks at me, is like, dude, like, I haven't clipped them in like 3 weeks. I've been tired. I thought we were just drinking. It's like, you're walking around my house in socks with those? Oh, God.
Amen.
Getting old is funny. Getting older is funny.
It's great. It beats the alternative.
Getting younger?
Oh, yeah.
No, dying.
To be younger.
I
would love to do that.
Be younger, getting a card with 20.
Yeah. If you're not getting older, you're dead.
No, you know what? I was so tired. I told Josh I had 86 patients last night because I was the only person in my facility where it's that much of a short staff crisis right now. But I had a coworker come in, and I stopped for a second. I look into my patient's room. I'm staring at him for a second, and I was out of it. I didn't realize I said this to him. The guy was sleeping. He breathes so incredibly shallowly. Like it's you have to really pay attention with this guy when he's sleeping. He's like 90 years old. I'm looking at him for a second, and he's like, "You okay?" Again, I just think that I say to myself, like, "Yeah, man, just making sure you're good." And I just like walked on. I didn't just stop there. What was in my head came out of my mouth, and very vocal for this guy to hear. My coworker stops me. She's like, "You really said that to him?" I was like, well, I just want to make sure he's good. She's like, "No, you said you thought he was dead." Like, oh. Like, she's like, "Yeah, you said I was going to make sure you're good. I thought you were dead." Like, oh, God.
That's our button on the sketch. You walk by, Jamie Farr's like, "Hey, buddy." Oh, you were dead. There you go.
Oh, God. And by giving us that idea, you are now contractually obligated to be part of the skit. So,
love it. I know. I own 1/3 of the sketch now.
You own 1/3 of the sketch, written by Josh will help me fix it up. It'll be written by Josh, Brandon, and Matt. So I'll get Josh to send you a copy when it's done. God. Oh man. But yeah. Huh?
To send you that copy, Matt, where can everybody find you on the social medias, and if there's anything you want to plug?
If anybody's interested, you can find me on all the social media platforms at McCarthy Redhead. I'm most active on TikTok and Instagram. Once in a while, I'll throw something up on Twitter, but that just feels like a vacant void, if that's to be redundant. Other than that, we watch wrestling podcast every Wednesday, wherever you listen to podcasts. My wife and I do a movie and TV podcast called Watch It with Matt and Glennis. We put those up either on Mondays or Fridays, or sometimes both. But my wife's back in school, so it makes the schedule volatile. And then other than that, I've got stand-up comedy records you can listen to digitally wherever you stream music. You can find my stuff. Sober Dad is the last thing I put out. Very proud of that piece of work. And it's got the Pro Wrestling Fan, this routine, this 10-minute routine that it started on the We Watch Wrestling podcast, and it turned into this, this I don't know. It was the idea was I wanted to stand up and defend pro wrestling fans. So you can listen to that there. And other than that, How We Roll, it starts on Thursday, March 31st, 9:30 p.m. on CBS. I believe that's going to be our regular time slot. And it would mean the world to me if people watched it and liked it and checked it out. And other than that, just say what's up if you're in Dallas next week for WrestleMania. Come by the table at WrestleCon. And if you ever need to get rid of any old wrestling magazines or old VHS tapes, you can send them my way. And I will take care of them, and they will be protected and loved here in the Arena McSee archive. But other than that, thank you guys so much for having me on the show. This has been a lot of fun.
Well,
no
I
problem.
Certainly appreciated having you. It's been a lot of fun for me as well, Brandon. I think you're about to say the same thing.
No, absolutely. Absolutely. And of course, you're always welcome to come back if you want. Hopefully, by that point, I'll be moved into the new place and actually have mine and Danielle's office that we're sharing together with our own separate workspaces set up. So that we can have more room to move here. But yeah, no, it's been absolutely awesome. It's been a great pleasure of mine to be able to speak with you, pick your brain. Yeah. So, but is this where I plug in my socials, Josh?
Yeah, go ahead and talk about your social media and let everybody know about the sitcom that you're on.
The sitcom I'm on. Well, you can follow me on Instagram if you use the gram. I have a new account with very few followers and very few posts due to a recent hacker situation where I deleted the old one. But it's bjacksman1982. You can also follow me on Twitter. I think I have a post on Twitter from like 2 years ago. But that is under You Can't Ground Me. I don't know what I was thinking. I think I might have been drinking when I made the account. But if you don't want to follow me, that's fine. But if you can follow the podcast, you can catch us on Instagram, the WADcast. You'll notice our page because it says the WADcast on it. But it's also a black picture of the white banner with the word WADcast in it to make sure that you're not lost. You can follow us on Facebook if you're catching this on our website. You can catch us on Facebook at facebook.com/the WADcast. And if you are listening to this on Facebook and you want a website, it is just thewadcast.com. You'll notice all these things because they all have the word Wadcast in them. But yeah, that's where you can follow me. My Facebook is my Facebook. I'm horrible at social media. Josh is always on me about social media, but I'm really bad at it.
It's true.
But look for Brandon Junk. I think there's
Brandon's Junk.
I don't even know what the hell my profile picture is. That's how connected to my Facebook I am. But just look for Brandon Junk. hit friend request, and I may get around to accepting it. I've got 100 in the pipeline, apparently. I think most of them are scams. But yeah, that's where you can find me.
The only people in my friends' inbox are very hot girls and very real.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I'm sorry. I'm supposed to plug the sitcom. Yeah, very real. You got a long line of very real women just lined up around the corner for you, Josh.
Mm-hmm.
But you know what? If they don't take you, then I will take you. In the most heterosexual way possible.
Look, you're already in two relationships, one with your girlfriend, the other with your hacker. So.
Oh, no. My hacker broke up with me.
What? Then this is kind of irrelevant at this point.
You know what? At least it's not the Eagle picture, but that's my country album picture right there. But no, it's like, and the sitcom that I will plug is I'm in this wonderful sitcom called Life. There's lots of up and downs, and every day is just a struggle to make ends meet because, as I said earlier, LA County is a very expensive place in the United States to live right now. So I'm very excited about the $2,000 2-bedroom apartment that I'm moving into that I could probably rented a few years ago in Jacksonville, Florida for like, $700 a month. Huh?
Six-pack.
But yeah, so that's where you can follow me. And the great thing about the sitcom I plugged is that we're all in that same sitcom right now together.
I better start getting residuals.
We're all coasting. Your residuals is that you're still breathing. Residual breathing. So there you go.
Well, okay. You can follow me at SkidComic on Twitter or go to semicorestudios.com for all of the fabulous links to the wonderful podcast that WADco Media produces. This is one of 2 currently in production. So make sure you join us every week for the Movie Potluck on Thursday and, of course, the WADcast on Fridays. With that being said, Matt, every week I give kind of a final thought, Jerry Springer-esque, but it all's based around the same theme. And I'm going to do something Brandon hates.
What do I hate?
This.
You're not doing that Full House music, are you?
Uh-huh.
Oh, damn it. Come on, man.
Okay.
Oh, God.
Remember, boys and girls, the only thing standing between you and your dreams is you. I think the overall theme of tonight's show was make sure that you are living right now. Don't mistake the destination for what you're doing at the moment, because you still got a ways to go. You aren't the total of where you are. You got to focus on where you're going to be. But the only way to start following your dreams is to start doing it. Not tomorrow. Who knows what's going to happen tomorrow? Start today. If you want to write, start writing. If you want to act, you got a phone, send it out, press record. You're acting. If you want to direct, flip that phone around and start shooting stuff with a camera. I should be very clear. But again, the thing to remember is you are your biggest obstacle. And if you can get over that, you can pretty much do anything. Alrighty. With that being said, I'm Josh. That's Brandon. And Matt, once again, thank you for coming on the show tonight. I hope everybody has a good night. And we will get you.
Josh, real quick. I'm sorry. This is not the music. This is not the music that I hate. You put on hold music to give your final thought.
You could have waited like 3 seconds to
But you just told him to act on your instinct and do the thing you want to do.
Yes.
Now is the time.
I followed my dreams.
Right.
All right.